Millionaire shocked by the girl who replied in Arabic without expecting anything. The Grand Vista Hotel buzzed with its usual hum, clicking heels on marble, hushed conversations, the faint scent of expensive cologne and fresh lilies. Rafaela Núñez da Costa pushed her cart down the gleaming hallway, the soft scrape of her mop against polished floors, a quiet counterpoint to the hotel's luxury. She was just another cleaning lady to most, gloves worn thin, blue uniform faded, eyes lowered like she wanted to vanish into the shadows. But then it happened, something no one saw coming. Across the hall, a sharply dressed man with an air of old money and power was struggling with directions. Edward Black, a tech titan whose name was whispered in boardrooms and echoed in startup myths, approached the front desk in frustration. His accent cut through the lounge's soft murmur. "Where's the conference room? Can someone help me?" Rafaela caught his glance, the kind that usually ignored people. A tiny crowd gathered, whispers blooming like wildfire. Did she just speak Arabic? Where did she learn that? Rafaela's heart pounded, tight in her chest. Her hands trembled barely, the mop handle feeling suddenly heavier. She'd hidden this part of herself for years, the past that could shatter the ordinary image painted for her by those who only saw a maid. Once, Rafaela was more than this polished hall's background noise. A professor, renowned and respected, until the day everything was ripped away by lies so cold and cruel. A scandal that chained her to silence and exile. The papers never told the truth. Her name was smeared, her career destroyed, the truth buried deep in courtrooms and cold glares. Edward's curiosity morphed into fascination. Later that day, he found her quietly wiping the lobby floor, eyes darting away as if afraid of her own voice being noticed. He sat beside her, softly. "Where did you learn to speak like that? Arabic isn't easy." Rafaela's breath caught, the lump in her throat growing. She forced a shrug, the weight of her secrets pressing down. But the wheels of fate started to turn. Carl, the hotel manager, a man with a sharp tongue and sharper skepticism, noticed Rafaela's unexpected spark. He didn't like it, not one bit. Whispers of complaints, minor mistakes exaggerated, emails sent behind closed doors. He wanted her gone. The hotel's polished facade couldn't risk a cleaning lady stealing the spotlight. Tension boiled beneath Rafaela's calm surface. Each accusation felt like a punch to the gut, each glance a judgment carved in stone. She considered leaving, to vanish again, to bury the shattered pieces of her soul. But Edward stepped in, offering her a lifeline, a chance to lead a global project about cultural integration, to use her knowledge beyond the shadows. Still, the past lurked, an unspoken enemy stalking her steps. Could she face the boardroom? Could she stand against Carl's schemes? When Edward revealed Carl's deceitful tactics, the room held its breath with her. Eyes darted, whispers rose, and Rafaela's heart raced. The stakes were clear. This was more than a job. It was a fight for her dignity, her story, her future. Could Rafaela turn pain into power? Or would the darkness of her past snatch away this glimpse of light just as it appeared? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city A? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The air was thick with tension as Rafaela gripped her mop tighter, her heart pounding against her ribs. Edward Black sat there, his gaze intense, waiting for her answer. I learned it at university, she finally whispered, surprise at her own words seeping into the silence. The truth tasted bitter. Once she had been someone. But could she turn this moment into something more? Edward smiled softly. Then you should be out there, not here, he encouraged, his voice carrying the weight of kindness. The lingering words hung like a beacon, lighting up the shadows in Rafaela's heart. But just as hope flickered, the doors of the hotel burst open. A cacophony shattered the atmosphere. In stormed Carl, the manager, his face dark with fury. "Rafaela," he barked, his voice harsh enough to silence the murmur of the crowd. "A word, please." The guests looked on, eyes wide, mouths agape. Rafaela felt the walls closing in. Cold sweat dripped down her back. She stood frozen, fear gripping her like a vice. I was just— "No excuses!" Carl snapped, cutting her off. "You've embarrassed this hotel. Speaking Arabic in front of guests? Who do you think you are?" His words hit her like sharp blades, seeking to draw blood. Edward shifted in his seat, clearly frustrated. "You're being unreasonable, Carl." "Unreasonable?" Carl laughed cruelly, a sound that echoed against the marble walls. "This cleaning lady thinks she can just revolutionize everything? I won't let her smear our reputation just because she can string a couple of sentences together." Rafaela felt the breath leave her lungs. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, but the memories flash-flooded her mind. Her reputation ripped apart, her voice silenced. Her secret weighed heavier than the mop she clutched. And then, in the chaos, the unexpected happened. A tall figure stepped in, cloaked in an aura of authority. "That's enough, Carl," the stranger said. The crowd parted, revealing a well-dressed woman, sharp features and steel in her gaze. "You've crossed a line." "Who are you?" Carl sneered, challenging her presence. "I'm Clara Ashford," she said, her voice calm but fierce. "You don't recognize me, but I've been watching. And your treatment of Ms. DaCosta is unacceptable." Shocked murmurs rippled through the gathering audience. Rafaela's heart raced. She had never expected help from a figure like this. Clara approached Rafaela, eyes softening. "Rafaela, isn't it? You have potential, beyond what this job can offer." "Wait, how do you know my name?" Rafaela asked, her voice trembling. Clara leaned closer, the tension sparking like electricity between them. "I know more about you than anyone here. I followed your career, your studies, even after everything that happened." Her tone shifted, urgency creeping in. "That's why I'm here. You're in danger. Carl has a plan to bury the truth." "Bury the truth?" Rafaela echoed, confusion swirling in her chest. She looked back at Carl, whose face had turned a disturbing shade, his jaw clenched. "Yes," Clara continued, her voice steady. "I'm part of an organization fighting for those silenced by systemic abuse. You're a target, Rafaela. Your past wasn't an accident. It was set to destroy you." The words hung heavy in the air, a sickening twist unraveling everything she thought she knew. The weight of her life-shattered pieces suddenly pressed down harder. Was Carl merely a petty tyrant? Or was he a pawn in a much larger game? Rafaela's throat tightened, dread coiling in her stomach. The stakes shot up. Did she dare confront the past she thought buried? The tension crackled, and just as her heart raced to a breaking point, Clara extended her hand. "Join me, Rafaela. We need to expose the truth." Rafaela's pulse pounded in her ears. Could she? Should she? The shadows loomed large, whispering doubts, but a flicker of hope ignited within her. "But my past can become your power," Clara urged. Every eye was on her. Every heartbeat echoed in the tense silence. Would she embrace the truth and fight, or would fear grip her once again? The choice weighed heavily as the room held its breath, waiting for her answer. Rafaela's heart raced, uncertainty flashing in her eyes. Clara's hand lingered, a lifeline offered in a sea of chaos. Join me, Rafaela. We need to expose the truth. The weight of expectation hung in the air. Could she really do this? Should she? Carl's anger pulsed, his face taut, the tension crackling like static electricity. The guests shifted nervously, whispers taunting her, pulling her back to the shadows. Rafaela took a deep breath. "I'll help," she finally said, fueled by a surge of renewed purpose. But as the words left her lips, the ground beneath them shook, literally. A deafening roar erupted, drowning out the murmurs. The walls trembled, and a bright flash of light sliced through the hotel's calm. Panic rippled through the crowd. People screamed, stumbling back, eyes wide with fear. "What the?" Edward shouted, confusion etched on his face. Rafaela grabbed Clara's arm, a jolt of terror shooting through her. Then came the blast, a distant explosion that sent a wave of heat charging forward. The hotel shook violently, chandeliers swaying like pendulums in a storm. Carl stumbled, his facade of control cracking. "Everyone, stay calm," he barked, but his frantic eyes betrayed him. Guests rushed toward exits, and chairs toppled over in the chaos. "Rafaela!" Clara yelled, urgency lacing her voice. "We need to get out." But just as they turned, the front doors burst open. A group of armed security personnel stormed in, their faces grim, weapons drawn. Rafaela's breath hitched. "What's happening?" she stammered, terror clawing at her throat. Clara's expression shifted, her confident demeanor crumbling. "This isn't right. We need to move." Suddenly, an official-looking man holding a badge strode forward. "Everyone, stay where you are." His voice commanded, but it did little to quell the fear swelling in the room. "We're securing the area. There's been a breach. Please remain calm." "Breach?" Edward exclaimed. "What are you talking about?" Rafaela's mind raced, connecting dots in her panic state. This was bigger than a simple conflict between her and Carl. The weight of it pressed down on her chest. "Clara, what's going on? Is this connected to—" But before she could finish, another explosion rocked the building, closer this time. The lights flickered, then went out. Darkness enveloped them. Screams erupted anew. She felt a cold hand grasp her shoulder, and she spun around, heart pounding. "Rafaela, listen." Clara's voice broke through the chaos, firm, yet afraid. "There's something I haven't told you." The emergency lights flickered back on, casting eerie shadows across the room. Clara took a step closer, urgency in her eyes. "The truth about your past. It goes deeper than you know. Your scandal wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. Someone wanted to ruin you. And now." Rafaela's heart stopped as she noticed a new figure emerging from the shadows, moving toward them. A familiar face, but one she hadn't seen in years. It belonged to someone she thought she'd lost forever. Someone from her past. Someone who knew the secrets that could shatter everything. "Rafaela," the figure whispered, voice trembling with urgency. "It's time we talked about your real story." Every breath caught, and every pulse quickened as her past came crashing into her present. Would she find closure? Or would this reveal more dark twists to her tale? The room held its breath. Her heart thundered. What she would learn next could change everything, but would it destroy her or save her? Rafaela's heart stopped as she stared into the familiar eyes that emerged from the shadows. It was Gabriel, her former colleague, the one man she thought she'd lost to the tides of betrayal and scandal. His presence sent shockwaves through her, memories flooding back, days filled with laughter, dreams of academia, and a shared passion for knowledge. "Gabriel?" she whispered, disbelief dancing in her voice. "What are you doing here?" "Rafa, they're coming for you." "What? Who's coming?" Clara interrupted, her eyes darting from Gabriel to the armed guards securing the entrance. The tension felt like a live wire. "Carl, "And others," Gabriel said, urgency dripping from his words. "They're afraid you'll expose everything." A shudder ran through Rafaela. Expose what? Her mind raced, desperate for answers. The hotel felt like a cage, the walls closing in. Just then, the lights flickered again, casting the scene in a ghostly glow. The disruption had Carl, still trying to maintain control, barking orders amidst the growing chaos. "Everyone stay put. We're securing the area." His voice trembled slightly, revealing the cracks in his arrogance. Gabriel's hands gripped Rafaela's shoulders, grounding her in that tempest of uncertainty. "You don't know what they did. They framed you, Rafaela. They lied. The scandal, it wasn't just a freak accident. It was a plan." His eyes pleaded with her. "What are you saying?" Panic clawed at her throat, heart pounding. The audience around them murmured, the fear palpable. Edward stood frozen, shock piercing across his face. The scandal that ruined you wasn't just about you. It was bigger. Dangerous people wanted you out of the picture. The truth about your research, it could bring down empires. Rafaela felt her breath hitch. Emotions surged, confusion, fear, disbelief. It felt surreal. "I don't understand." Before Gabriel could respond, another explosion echoed from the hotel's upper floors. The sound vibrated through the walls, shaking the crowd further. People screamed, urgency sharp in the air. A wave of dust billowed through the lobby, and the lights went out once more, plunging them into darkness. "Get down!" Clara shouted, pulling Rafaela to the floor. The chaos escalated. The hotel trembled underfoot. The familiar marble and gold now felt like a tomb. In the aftermath of the blast, a terrifying silence blanketed the room. Then, from the depths of the swirling dust, someone began to move, a figure emerging, stepping smoothly through the panic. It was a woman, cloaked in shadows, her expression unreadable. As she approached, the crowd parted, eyes wide, breaths caught. The air felt electric, heavy with anticipation. She stopped in front of Rafaela, expression fierce and intimate. "I'm here for you, Rafaela. You have something powerful inside of you. It's time to wake it up." "Who are you?" Rafaela managed, still reeling from the fallout. The woman's eyes bore into her, filled with an intensity that sparked courage and fear in equal measure. "I'm someone who knows your truth," she said, voice dropping low, "and someone who needs your help to bring justice to those who think they can silence you." Rafaela's mind spun, her heart racing. Justice? The air thickened with tension as Clara's fingers trembled against Rafaela's wrist. "What do you mean? What are you trying to say?" "Your past was manipulated," the woman replied, her voice cutting through the uncertainty like a knife. "Everything you have lost. They want you to think it was your fault. They don't just want to silence you. They want to erase you." Rafaela's stomach dropped. The pieces of her life that she'd painstakingly put back together now seemed like scattered shards, ready to cut her again. Heart pounding, she whispered, "But why?" "Because you're standing in the way of a truth they desperately need to keep hidden." Before Rafaela could process this revelation, the building shook again. The floor jolted violently. She fell, her world spinning. And as the dust settled slightly, a distant siren's wail grew louder, mixing with the chaos around them. In that instant, everything shifted. Her life wasn't just about a scandal. It was a battleground hiding the truth. A truth that had the power to ignite a war. And those fighting against her were much closer than she imagined. Rafaela's heart thundered in her chest. With the weight of her past bearing down, she faced a choice: fight through the storm or sink into the shadows once more. A single thought pierced through the fear. What if everything I believed was a lie? The air thickened with anticipation as Rafaela stared into Gabriel's eyes. "They're coming for you," he had said, urgency spilling from his lips. She felt like the walls were closing in, adding weight to the horrible truth he was unveiling. The panic around her swelled like a rising tide. Then came another explosion, a shattering roar that rattled the very essence of her reality. Dust poured into the lobby. "What are we going to do?" she cried, her voice barely above a whisper as the floor trembled beneath them. "Follow me," Clara shouted, her eyes darting between the chaos. The crowd swirled like leaves in a storm, and the armed guards shifted, their weapons drawn, screams of panic resounding. Rafaela's feet felt glued to the ground, heart racing. But as Clara pulled her, something in the commotion caught her eye. A flash of something around Gabriel's neck. A glint that reflected the chaos surrounding them. Suddenly, the woman cloaked in shadows stepped forward, her voice slicing through the din, revealing an authority that commanded silence. "Stand down," she called, and the guards froze, clearly taken aback. "Who are you?" Carl spat, his anger melting into confusion. "More importantly," she said, her eyes locking onto Rafaela, "you need to know about him." She pointed toward Gabriel. "What about Gabriel?" Rafaela gasped, her heart plummeting into her stomach. Then everything flipped. "He's not who you think he is." The woman's voice rang loud, cutting through the fear like a knife. "He's been playing both sides." Gasps rippled across the crowd. Rafaela's mind raced, fury and confusion intertwining. "What?" she asked, her voice a whisper. "Gabriel was never your ally. He's the reason behind the lies that destroyed you. He worked with Carl and others to set you up." Every word pierced through Rafaela like shards of glass. She felt the ground beneath her tremble, her heart racing as betrayal seeped into her veins. She studied Gabriel's face, searching for denial or remorse. But instead, she saw a tight mask of fear. "Rafaela," he pleaded, taking a step forward. "You don't understand." "No, you shut up!" she interrupted, horror tasting bitter on her tongue. "All this time, you were in on it?" "No, I tried to warn you," he shouted desperately, arms raised. The crowd buzzed with disbelief, voices clashing in confusion. Clara leaned closer to Rafaela, a fire igniting in her eyes. "He's a snake. You need to decide now. Are you going to trust him, or are you going to fight back?" Before Rafaela could respond, another explosion rocked the hotel, throwing them all to the floor. Dust rained down like a toxic veil. Instinct kicked in. She scrambled to rise, heart racing. The chaos swirled, a cyclone of panic as people rushed to the exits. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," Gabriel shouted, his voice cracking under pressure. But the desperation in his eyes felt like a lie, a mechanism to pull her back into the depths of betrayal. "Stop!" Clara shouted over the commotion, grabbing Rafaela's arm. "We can't trust him. He's dangerous." Rafaela stood frozen. The shadows of her past wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket, demoralizing her. She was slipping into a rhythm steeped in fear and uncertainty, torn between trust and betrayal. The very foundation of a future she hoped for, ripped from her grasp. Just then, it happened. Silence descended as the crowd halted, each breath caught in anticipation. A group of masked individuals burst into the hotel, swiftly maneuvering through the chaos. "Secure the perimeter," one yelled, their voice cold and unwavering. Rafaela's world spun. Who were they? Allies? Enemies? In an instant, she felt the weight of the decision pressing down harder than before. She was faced with not just Gabriel's betrayal, but a deeper web of manipulation surrounding her. The air crackled with urgency. She had to choose. But as the heavy shadows pressed in, she realized the demons of her past were only the surface of a much darker truth. The foundations of her life were crumbling, and she had to decide. Would she succumb to fear or fight for her future? Chaos erupted anew, but she could only hear those 3 words echoing in her head. He's been playing both sides. The air thickened with anticipation as Rafaela stared into Gabriel's eyes. "They're coming for you," he had said, urgency spilling from his lips. She felt like the walls were closing in, adding weight to the horrible truth he was unveiling. The panic around her swelled like a rising tide. Then came another explosion, a shattering roar that rattled the very essence of her reality. Dust poured into the lobby, thick and choking. Rafaela grasped Clara's arm tighter. "What are we going to do?" she cried, her voice barely above a whisper as the floor trembled beneath them. "Follow me," Clara shouted, her eyes darting between the chaos. The crowd swirled like leaves in a storm, and the armed guards shifted, their weapons drawn, screams of panic resounding. Rafaela's feet felt glued to the ground, heart racing, but as Clara pulled her, something in the commotion caught her eye. A flash of something around Gabriel's neck, a glint that reflected the chaos surrounding them. Suddenly, the woman cloaked in shadows stepped forward, her voice slicing through the din, revealing an authority that commanded silence. "Stand down," she called, and the guards froze, clearly taken aback. "Who are you?" Carl spat, his anger melting into confusion. "More importantly," she said, her eyes locking onto Rafaela, "you need to know about him." She pointed toward Gabriel. "What about Gabriel?" Rafaela gasped, her heart plummeting into her stomach. Then, everything flipped. "He's not who you think he is." The woman's voice rang loud, cutting through the fear like a knife. "He's been playing both sides." Gasps rippled across the crowd. Rafaela's mind raced, fury and confusion intertwining. "What?" she asked, her voice a whisper. "Gabriel was never your ally. He's the reason behind the lies that destroyed you. He worked with Carl and others to set you up." Every word pierced through Rafaela like shards of glass. She felt the ground beneath her tremble, her heart racing as betrayal seeped into her veins. She studied Gabriel's face, searching for denial or remorse, but instead, she saw a tight mask of fear. "Rafaela," he pleaded, taking a step forward, "you don't understand." "No, you shut up," she interrupted, horror tasting bitter on her tongue. "All this time, you were in on it?" "No, I tried to warn you," he shouted desperately, arms raised. The crowd buzzed with disbelief, voices clashing in confusion. Clara leaned closer to Rafaela, a fire igniting in her eyes. "He's a snake. You need to decide now. Are you going to trust him, or are you going to fight back?" Before Rafaela could respond, another explosion rocked the hotel, throwing them all to the floor. Dust rained down like a toxic veil. Instinct kicked in. She scrambled to rise, heart racing. The chaos swirled, a cyclone of panic as people rushed to the exits. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," Gabriel shouted, his voice cracking under pressure. But the desperation in his eyes felt like a lie, a mechanism to pull her back into the depths of betrayal. "Stop!" Clara shouted over the commotion, grabbing Rafaela's arm. "We can't trust him. He's dangerous." Rafaela stood frozen. The shadows of her past wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket, demoralizing her. She was slipping into a rhythm steeped in fear and uncertainty, torn between trust and betrayal. The very foundation of a future she hoped for, ripped from her grasp. Just then, it happened. A figure emerged from the swirling dust, a presence that seemed to glow against the chaos. It was a woman dressed in formal attire, her face calm despite the turmoil. "Enough," she called, her voice icy and commanding, silencing everyone in an instant. "Who are you?" Carl demanded, his bravado faltering. "I am Veronica Cross," she announced, her eyes scanning the room, resting deliberately on Rafaela. "And I know everything about you." Panic twisted in Rafaela's gut. "What do you mean?" "I've been watching," Veronica continued, her gaze piercing. The scandal? It's part of something much bigger. And your involvement was no mistake, Rafaela. They needed you out of the picture because you're far more important than they want you to believe. What are you saying? Rafaela's voice trembled. The weight of the world felt like it was crashing down around her. Your research was groundbreaking, Veronica said, a knowing tone woven into her words. They didn't want it to see the light of day. You were a threat, a sliver of clarity sliced through the chaos. So it wasn't just about me. It was about the work I did. The truth? She could feel all eyes on her, reality tightening around her like a vice. Yes, Veronica replied, stepping closer, a fierce determination fueling her presence. But that's not all. There's more than just your past at stake. This is about protecting those who've been silenced by those in power. A sudden silence descended, palpable and heavy. Rafaela glanced back at Gabriel, but instead of support, she saw something darker, a hesitation, a spark of fear. Then it struck her, a horrible truth. You set me up to take the fall, didn't you? The realization rocked her, an avalanche of betrayal. An icy breath caught in her throat. Rafaela, Gabriel stuttered, but the panic flooding his eyes spoke volumes. Before she could process it all, another explosion erupted, jolting them once more. But this time, when the dust settled, the room revealed something horrifying. The walls began to fall away, crumbling as the floor shook violently. Shadows swirled around them, like a living entity, threatening to swallow her whole. And in that moment, as everything she thought she knew unraveled before her eyes, a scream pierced through the chaos. Run! They've compromised the building entirely. The floor seemed to tilt beneath them, and as reality began to shift, Rafaela felt a new sense of purpose ignite within her. I won't lay, not now, not ever. Choices loomed like shadows, racing to catch up with her. Would she become a victim or a warrior against the tide? As the ground split, everything was up for grabs. The truth was out there. But at what cost? Rafaela's heart thundered as she stood amidst the chaos, the shock of betrayal still coursing through her veins. Dust filled the air, creating an oppressive atmosphere that pressed down on her like a weight. She glanced at Gabriel, who looked a mixture of regret and fear, and then at Clara, whose fierce determination radiated strength. Get up, Clara shouted, pulling Rafaela to her feet. We need to move. But before they could take a step, the ground shook violently. It felt like the world was splitting apart. Panic hit like a fist to her gut. Rafaela stumbled, desperately trying to find her balance. What's happening? She screamed, fear clawing at her throat. Another explosion echoed, closer this time. Metal splitting, glass shattering. The ceiling above them groaned ominously. The building is coming down! Screamed one of the guests, terror etched across faces like graffiti on a wall. Run, Clara yelled, shoving people toward the exits. The crowd surged forward, fueled by raw instinct. But Rafaela hesitated, caught in a storm of uncertainty. Every instinct told her to flee, to escape the nightmare unfolding around her. But one question burned in her mind. Gabriel, why? She rasped, trying to make sense of it all. Why did you do this? But before he could reply, Veronica stepped closer, her expression intense. Rafaela, listen to me, she urged, grabbing her hand. You need to trust me. The truth will save you. But just as she opened her mouth to respond, a sharp, blinding light burst through the lobby windows, illuminating everything like daylight. The very air felt electric, a static charge darting across her skin. The ground thudded again, harder this time, a rumble that sent a wave of dread washing over the crowd. Now, Clara shouted, and they all began to move as one, a frantic rush fueled by sheer terror. Then came the voice, "Stop!" It roared through the chaos like a thunderclap, making everyone pause mid-step. The room went eerily quiet. It was a sound that caused every heart to stutter. Echoing through the lobby, It came from the figure that stepped forward, tall and commanding, a man in a sleek black suit, face half hidden under the brim of a fedora. "Who are you?" Carl asked, his voice suddenly small, revealing the cracks in his bravado. "Your worst nightmare," the man sneered, his voice smooth like silk, but underscored with chilling intent. He reached into his pocket, pulling something out, a small cylindrical device that shimmered ominously in the light. Rafaela felt her blood run cold as he pressed a button. "This here," he said, voice dripping with menace, "is what we call a failsafe. One push and this whole place goes up in flames." Gasps erupted around her, and the tension crackled like static. Panic ignited again, sending people scrambling. But then the man's gaze fixed on Rafaela, icy and penetrating. "You, my dear, have something we need." "What?" she gasped, terror washing over her. "That research of yours, it's not just a scandal announcement. It's a weapon. Hand it over, and I'll consider letting you walk out of here." Rafaela felt like the ground had fallen away. The very essence of her past now represented a threat. "No, I won't let you." "Choose wisely," he interrupted, eyes glinting with dark amusement. "Or this hotel, and everyone in it, will be just another lost cause." Her thoughts raced, desperation clawing at her chest. The room was alive with fear, faces pale, eyes wide, hearts pounding. And there stood Gabriel, caught in the crossfire of her dawning realization. You knew," she stammered, the weight of betrayal crashing over her once more. But his expression was one of resignation, not defense. His gaze shifted toward the man in black with a hardness that chilled her. Betrayal, not just in Gabriel's actions, but now in his very fate. "Rafaela," he began, but she cut him off. "No, you don't get to explain." Then something shifted. The man smirked, taking a step closer, invading her space. "Tell me what I want to know, or your precious friend pays the price." Suddenly, the room shook one last time as the lights flickered and dimmed. Shadows engulfed them. But within that darkness, something unexpected happened. In the chaos, the cloaked woman reappeared, her face illuminated momentarily. She raised her hand, and the device exploded in a shower of sparks, launching shards of metal through the air. "Run!" Clara yelled, dragging Rafaela along just as the atmosphere lit up from an unseen force. But Rafaela turned, her whole world spinning once more. "Wait, what have you done?" The room crumbled around them, fragments of concrete raining down like shards of truth. But just as panic-filled shadows closed in, her heart froze at the realization. The hidden past, the ties that bound her to this chaos, were now entangled in a web even darker than she had feared. Another explosion rocked the hotel, a sound that echoed far beyond its walls, and she found herself wondering what life awaited on the other side of this new raised veil. Would this newfound knowledge set her free, or contain her deeper into the shadows? As the dust settled around them, Rafaela felt the world spin. The chaotic whispers of the crowd transformed into a low hum, a distant echo of desperation. Clara's hand gripped hers tightly, but the reality of their situation rooted her in place. "Rafaela!" Clara yelled, dropping. "We have to go!" But just as they took a step, the ground beneath their feet shifted with alarming intensity. A thunderous crash resonated, and the lights flickered again. Panic flooded through the air, a living beast clawing at her senses. The room trembled as debris fell from above, scattering like fallen leaves in a storm. "Move!" Clara shouted, urgency lacing her words as she pulled Rafaela along. They fought their way through the swarming crowd, hearts racing and breath quickening. Just as they neared the exit, a chilling voice cut through the chaos, clear and commanding. Stop right there! It came from the man in the black suit, his face obscured by shadows. He held the device tightly, and for a moment, the world hung in suspense. Time froze as everyone turned to look at him, fear dripping from their expressions, like sweat in the sweltering heat. Hand over the research, Rafaela, or everyone pays for your stubbornness. His eyes gleamed with a predatory light, an insatiable hunger. Rafaela's heart pounded in her chest. I can't! I won't! The words spilled from her lips, igniting something deep within her. She could feel the heat rising. The determination flickered with fierce intensity. That's when Gabriel stepped forward, his demeanor shifting, fearful yet resolute. Wait, he bellowed, face twisted in realization. You don't want to do this. Rafaela's stomach dropped. He had seemed so lost, so confused. But now, there was something different in him. A darkness that shadowed his features. Then speak, the man sneered, tightening his grip on the device. Your time's running out. No! Rafaela cried, stepping between them. You can't hurt him. None of this is his fault. A wave of emotion surged within her. She didn't understand why she felt this surge of protectiveness. Suddenly, the woman cloaked in shadows stepped forward yet again. You're wrong, Rafaela, she said firmly, eyes burning with truth. Gabriel isn't just your friend. But before she can finish, another explosion ripped through the lobby. This one closer, sharper. Flames licked at the edges of the room, casting flickering shadows against the chaos. Chunks of stone tumbled from the ceiling, crashing down around them. Run! Clara shouted, her voice breaking through the flames. In that moment, Gabriel lunged toward Rafaela, but the masked man grabbed his arm, pulling him back. You didn't think I'd let you escape that easily, did you? The tension in the air shifted, curling like smoke. Let him go, Rafaela screamed, panic clawing at her chest as she struggled against the crowd pushing towards the exits. As the flames grew closer, something within her exploded. A fierce surge of resolve. Enough. She pushed forward, fueled by adrenaline. She was done being a pawn in someone's game. But it was then. The light changed. The air shifted again, crackling with electricity. And in that blinding moment, everything fell apart. The man with the device looked confused, then frightened, as the shadows seemed to elongate. One by one, the guards dropped their weapons, mouths agape, eyes wide with horror. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. A woman, her face eerily familiar, stepping into the flickering light. I'm sorry it's come to this, Rafaela, she spoke, her voice steady, despite the chaos around them. I didn't want you to find out this way. Rafaela's heart stopped, her breath hitched. Mom? Every face shifted, shock spreading like wildfire. Whispers erupted among the crowd. She had thought her mother was gone, lost years ago in the wreckage of her life. But here she was, as real as the flames threatening to consume them both. Rafaela, I never wanted to leave you, her mother continued, stepping closer through the haze of smoke. But it was the only way to protect you from... From what? Rafaela yelled, confusion and anger intertwining like ivy around her heart. But her mother faltered, the weight of secrets too heavy in the air. There's a truth your father never wanted you to know. It goes deeper than you can imagine. Rafaela shook her head, the words tumbling into her heart like stones. The flames roared around her, but all she could focus on was the figure that stood before her, the well of emotions that threatened to drown her. What truth? She choked out, desperation clawing at her throat. Your research, it's not just important. It's everything. And you're not safe here. Another explosion. Closer still. Those words echoed in her mind, spinning a web of uncertainty and fear. As the fire swirled around them, the unthinkable settled heavy within her. The real fight wasn't just for survival anymore. It was for a truth she had yet to grasp. Would it bring her liberation or utterly consume her. The sudden realization turned her world upside down, leaving her suspended between past and present, fear and hope. And as the shadows closed in, all Rafaela could think was what else had been hidden in the dark. Rafaela was frozen, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Her mother stood before her, the flames flickering dangerously close. "Mom?" she gasped, disbelief lacing her voice. The very fabric of her world felt like it was unraveling before her eyes. "Rafaela, listen to me," her mother implored, desperation flooding her tone. "You're in terrible danger. You don't know what you're up against." "Neither do you," Rafaela snapped, frustration spilling over. "You disappeared. I've been fighting this alone, and now, enough!" The man in the black suit interrupted, his words slashing through the tension. "You need to decide, Rafaela. Hand over what we need or watch everyone here pay the price." The crowd around them stirred. Murmurs of fear echoed in the chaos. Clara maintained her grip on Rafaela, trying to pull her towards safety, but she felt stuck, torn between shock and betrayal. She glanced at Gabriel, whose eyes betrayed anxiety and uncertainty. Rafaela looked back to her mother. "What do you know?" she demanded. "What truth is so important that they'd kill for it?" "Everything you found out about your research." Her mother's voice cracked. "It ties into something much larger than you can imagine." Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and the ground shook beneath them. A loud crash resonated from above, sending dust tumbling down like confetti of despair. The chaos escalated, binding them in an atmosphere heavy with dread. "Get out!" someone screamed, pushing through the crowd. A wave of panic surged, pushing everyone toward the exits. People were shouting, falling, desperate to escape. It felt like a living nightmare. In this turmoil, Rafaela realized something was off. Her mother looked different, eyes sharp, a strange glimmer, revealing hints of darkness. Was she really the woman Rafaela had yearned for throughout her life? "Rafaela!" Clara shouted, urgency sharp in her tone. "We need to move. This place is coming down." But her mother stepped forward. "No, you must listen to me." "I don't trust you," Rafaela shouted, the fear in her heart dancing with anger. "You were gone. You left me. I can't believe anything you say." In the chaos, the cloaked woman reappeared, the shadows twisting with her movements. "Rafaela, you have no idea what you're standing in the middle of. Your mother—" "Shut up!" her mother's voice echoed, fierce and commanding. The shift in tone shifted the room. Whispers turned into gasps. "You should not be here!" Rafaela blinked, the revelation hitting her hard. "What do you mean?" In that moment, the world spun wildly as the unseen threat surged around them, a feeling she couldn't shake off. The man in the black suit laughed, breaking the tension, a chilling sound that sent shivers down her spine. "You really didn't know, did you?" "What are you talking about?" Rafaela breathed, confusion swirling in her mind. The man pointed at her mother. "You think she's trying to protect you? No, dear. She's been the puppet master this whole time." Rafaela's heart plummeted. "That's not true." But the anger on her mother's face shifted to something deeper, something darker. "Yes, Rafaela, you were always destined for this. You could have been one of us, but you chose the wrong path." "What?" Confusion shattered every thought in her mind. The crowd erupted again as the room dimmed. A flash of light. To her horror, the sound of gunfire erupted, and people screamed, chaos reigniting like wildfire. Rafaela's pulse raced. In that split second, everything changed. The truth cracked like glass, shining shards revealing terrifying reflections. Her mother wasn't just a figure from her past. She was part of something larger, something sinister, Clara yanked Rafaela back, shielding her from the chaos. "We need to get out of here." But it was too late. As the dust settled, the realization struck Rafaela like lightning. The very person she sought comfort from was her greatest threat. You planned all of this, didn't you?" Rafaela felt the ground beneath her fracture, relationships crumbling. "You used me!" The stunned silence was almost suffocating, charged with a new kind of fear. In that moment, Rafaela knew she was not just fighting for survival. She was fighting against her own blood. "Run!" a voice shouted again, but Rafaela stood still, hardening her resolve. The room erupted into chaos once more, but she saw clearly now. This was just the beginning. Everything she held dear was about to be tested in a way she never thought possible. What lay ahead was a battle against the darkness within, a struggle for her very soul. And as shadows loomed over them, she took a deep breath, feeling the heat of a truth she could no longer ignore. Would she rise from this or become lost like so many before her? The weight of the choice sat heavy on her shoulders, uncertain of what the future held or who she could trust. The only certainty, this wasn't over yet. Rafaela stood at the center of the chaos, her heart pounding in her chest. Her mother's revelation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The flames flickered ominously close, but Rafaela felt a surge of adrenaline. "You chose this path, Mom? You deceived me for all these years?" "No, I was trying to protect you." Her mother's voice broke, desperation painting her features with shadows. "I thought you'd understand." "Understand what?" Rafaela's voice trembled, tears blurring her vision. "Lies? Betrayal?" Gabriel's face twisted between anguish and guilt. "Rafaela, I didn't know." A deafening explosion tore through the lobby, sending debris flying. The lights flickered violently, chaos reigniting around them. People screamed, some frantically pushing toward the exits, minds gripped by panic. Rafaela felt the ground quake beneath her, fractures forming like the rifts in her life. "We have to go," Clara urged, tugging at Rafaela's arm. "Now!" But Rafaela couldn't move. The truth unspooled in her mind, and she could see the chess pieces shifting. "My research, it's not just data. It's a weapon, isn't it?" Veronica stepped forward, urgency radiating from her. "You're a target, Rafaela. You have to decide. Are you going to fight back or run?" "Fight," Rafaela murmured, doubt creeping in. The flames danced closer, curling like hungry tendrils around her feet. "Yes, fight!" Clara shouted, determination blazing in her eyes. "You have the power to expose them, to end this." Rafaela shook her head, feeling both terror and weightlessness. "But if I do—" "No excuses!" Clara's voice cut through, fierce. "This is your chance to reclaim everything they took from you." Rafaela's gaze darted between her mother, the traitor in the shadows, and Gabriel, a lost ally. The crowd surged around them, pushing and pulling, but she was anchored in her reality, the choice sharp as glass. "Okay," she breathed, steeling herself. "I'll fight." The ground trembled again, echoing her resolution. "But we need a plan." Before they could strategize, the man in the black suit stepped forward. "Enough playing games. Hand over the research, Rafaela, or this hotel becomes your grave." "Never," she spat, her voice raw, filled with a fierce defiance. "I won't let you destroy everything I've built." Then, in a flash, the cloaked woman lunged, disarming the man in one swift motion. "We don't have time. Follow me." Rafaela's heart raced as they scrambled toward the nearest exit, pushing past others still trapped in fear. Once outside, the chill of the night air hit her face, a stark contrast to the claustrophobic heat inside. But even here, danger loomed. A black SUV screeched to a halt, doors flinging open. "Get in!" Veronica barked, urgency in her voice. They didn't hesitate. They jumped into the vehicle, just as another explosion shook the ground. The hotel behind them crumbled, a fiery beacon against the night sky. As they sped away, Rafaela felt a rush of hope mixed with sorrow. What would happen next? Would they be safe? And what would her mother's secrets unravel? Rafaela looked back, the flames flickering in the rearview mirror. "This isn't the end, is it?" she whispered, feeling a strange mix of dread and exhilaration. Veronica glanced back at her, a knowing look in her eyes. "No, it's just the beginning." And with that, Rafaela realized that her journey was far from over. The shadows lingered, but now she was prepared to fight. The balance had shifted. You see, this was just the beginning. Before you go, you must subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Hit that like button to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. It really matters. And please, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know how this ends. Don't wait one more second. Your support makes all the difference.